jump right in. The IUL experiment. I thought this was super interesting. I love that you went about it this way because it's really easy to be a spectator and speculate, but then once you actually go through it, you can, it brings a little extra credibility and extra level of certainty. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you if you just want to tell us about the IUL experiment, why you started it, what it's all about.
Yeah, so IUL, for those who don't know, stands for Indexed Universal Life Insurance. It is a certain form of permanent life insurance where, in addition to paying for an ongoing death benefit that lasts as long as you live, assuming you keep the policy in force from paying enough premium if and when necessary, it also accumulates a cash value, an accessible sort of asset amount of cash value that you can borrow against or you can take out if you want. There's certain tax considerations around how much you take out and et cetera. But the point is, it's also this sort of like sidecar. I don't want to call it a savings or investing account because it's technically not, but it's a savings or investing like account sort of bolted onto this permanent life insurance policy. So I first came across, I heard of Index Universal Life probably 10 years ago and, studying for CFP and learning more about the advisory and planning industry. It wasn't until maybe 2017, 18, 19 at the latest, where I started to get active on Facebook groups, retirement-related Facebook groups, and I saw a few people talking about things called tax-free retirement account, laser fund, Section 7702 plan, and other sort of things like that, and I'd never heard of those. And they were describing it, and it sounded amazing and tax-free and put some money in and all sorts of benefits. And I looked into a few and realized, oh, it's Index Universal Life Insurance. A common denominator across all of these different marketing terms that people were ultimately pitching, look into them more, and they were insurance salespeople, is that it's Index Universal Life Insurance that they're selling. So that sort of like piqued my antenna, and I was like, ooh, what is this, and why is everyone calling it something different other than avoiding saying it's life insurance? And so the more I researched and the more I got active in Facebook groups and the more I started following on social media people who were selling this product under various names, the more I was like, wow, there's a lot of interesting claims and hypotheses and assumptions and sort of marketing spin around this. And I just got more engaged and interested and tried to learn as much as I could. And there was lots of claims and projections like, oh, if you put in this much per year for 10 years, you never have to put more money in. And when you're 65, you can take out, whatever, $70,000 a year for life, tax-free. It sounds amazing. Right. And I started looking into it. And because it's life insurance, it's a private contract between insurer and the policyholder. It's not like buying an index fund or something where it's a commoditized product with observable data of what returns were for the last 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, where everyone buys the same thing. This is very bespoke, customized, unique, and private. Because it's private, there's no like comprehensive universal data set that covers and captures all of the Index Universal Life policies ever written since 1997 when the product started, to see how have they actually turned out, specifically against how they were originally marketed, presented, and illustrated to people with this, guaranteed tax-free income for life kind of pitch. And so I just started asking questions and sort of probing and kind of slowly poking holes in a lot of claims that people were making, namely on social media, about these Index Universal Life policies. And I started getting increasingly told, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't sell insurance. You're biased. You're a traditional advisor, that they'd use that as if it's a bad word, who only does asset management and planning. You don't sell insurance. So like, of course you're against this product. And I was like, I don't think I am. Like, I'm skeptical of it because a lot of the things being said about it don't seem to check the smell test in my mind. I'm not inherently against it. I just don't think it's getting marketed appropriately. And so anyway, I was like, okay, I couldn't find reliable, accurate, comprehensive data about how have these things actually done, not just cherry pick one policy that happened to work really well for someone, but like collectively, how they held up versus expectations. And that simply doesn't exist, or at least not that I can find. So I was like, okay, I guess let me buy my own so I can see firsthand how this plays out. And I want to share it all with the world, redact sensitive public, private information, but share all of it with the world, the initial policy, all the annual statements, the initial projections, et cetera. So that's what I did. Now, I did do this as an experiment. I mean, not to sound like jerky about it, but I got the smallest death benefit, the smallest policy I can get, because knowing this might not turn out as expected, I don't want to overdo it with putting a lot into it. So let me get the smallest I can get, but still try to have it structured and funded as optimally as possibly for being a small policy. So people can't hold it against me that, oh, you didn't put enough in, or you didn't structure it the right way, or et cetera. And so that's what I did. And so I got a policy. It's all shared online. The IULexperiment.com is the website I created for it. You go on there, you can see every document for it, all the, the full initial policy, the full, few dozen page policy, a couple of different illustrations of fee analysis with the projected fees every year. I've had the policy just over 3 years now. So there's 3 annual statements where you can see how this thing is actually kind of mapped out compared to what was projected. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of it. Now, to be fair, these are really long-term products, and anyone who understands them and sells them properly will tell you that. This is not something you buy to hope to hit it big in a year, 2 years, 5 years. This is expected to be a lifetime commitment where you have it for multiple decades, ideally until you actually die or the insured dies, and then the policy pays out its death benefit. So I'm a little over 3 years in. Thus far, the policy, the cash value, how this thing is growing over time, what the fees have aligned pretty closely, very closely to what was originally illustrated for what the projected cash values would be, 1 year in, 2 year in, 3 years in. So far it's a success in that it is doing what it was expected and intended and projected to do. My ultimate goal, which again, we're not going to know for 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, if this thing ended up being a success in hindsight or not, isn't is this thing going to produce like a 12% return on cash value per year? No. It's just, how has this performed relative to how it was originally illustrated? And the illustration was relatively conservative. It was assuming like a 5.2 or 5.3% annual rate of interest on the cash value, which is a little more muted than the 6+% often shown in some policies. So anyway, so that's what it is. It's available for anyone who wants to see it. Again, there's not enough time to really say, has this been a success or not? So far, it's tracking to what was expected. So in that sense, it's a success. But to be determined, we'll know 20, 30, 40 years in how this thing really held up over the course of time. Yeah,
good points. That's great that it's out there to track. And like you said, you can't really pass judgment right now. You definitely have to wait and see. And
the opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Katita and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial. For Jason Katita, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.